Hi guys, Miss Zimmer here, and today I want to talk to you about planning the structure of your informational writing. So, most of you should already have a topic, and you should be picking a topic from one of the things that we were learning about during our study of Earth's processes. And we chose that because you already know so much information that less research will be required, and you should be able to move more quickly through your information writing. But today I want to remind you that as an information writer, part of your job is to plan and structure your writing before you actually do it. You choose a structure that makes sense for your entire piece of writing. Let's practice with a topic that you won't be using, but one that we can think about together because it's something that's familiar to all of us. So for example, if I wanted to practice structuring my writing using the topic flexible seating, we will be able to think about what kinds of sections we might want to have in a book like this. We are experts in flexible seating by this point in the year, right? We've learned so much about the different ways we can sit in the classroom, how we can arrange the furniture, and those kinds of things are going to be part of our planning. So for example, I'm going to plan out my informational writing piece. And I always like to use an outline kind of format with my students. So I use the Roman numeral 1 to get started. And that's going to be our introduction. You can use your notebook in the same way and label your first section the introduction. And let's skip a few lines and come down. And then I'm going to do the Roman numeral for 2, which is 2 eyes. And think about something that I would want to tell others if I wanted to teach them about flexible seating. And one of the things you probably would want to include is the types of furniture you might use in a flexible seating classroom. So I'll put that subheading here. Now I'm going to move my page and slide down a little more. And let's see, I'm going to leave the same number of lines and write the Roman numeral for 3. And now that we have talked about the furniture, what would be something else that our readers would want to know? Think about that to yourself for a second. What else would people want to know about flexible seating? They might want to know our ideas for how you would think about organizing the space. I'm sure each of your classrooms has had different arrangements of the furniture this year and has different zones that you use for different purposes. And that's something that could be explained in this organizing the space section. Another section I might want to include would be our 4th one. So the Roman numeral for 4 is I and then a V. V is 5, and in Roman numerals you put an I before it to take one off. And we might want to talk about the rules or the agreements we follow to make this kind of seating work for us. In 4CZ, I think it's pretty important that we agree on certain things, and one of our agreements is that we are social, which means we sit with different people and we sit in different places. And that's something we could talk about in this section. Do you hear how we're already planning the things we could include in each of those sections? This will be really easy to knock out some of our planning here in a minute. And the last section we're going to want to include that we'll do writing in would be a conclusion. And probably even, so this is the Roman numeral for 5, the letter V. And then lastly, we will include a glossary because you will be using expert words in your information writing, and you'll want to be able to define those expert words for your readers. So I'll even make a little note for myself here. This is where my expert words go. Okay, let's think about doing a little more planning before you start writing anything, because it's important to think about what you want to tell your readers in each section before you write it. And that way, you make sure to include anything that's necessary. So for example, in our types of furniture section, what kinds of things might we want to include? Let's think. In our classrooms, we have a variety of tables. So I'm going to make myself a little note, and you could use letters or numbers, anything here you'd like. I'm just going to put a bullet because we're kind of used to that. We might include information about the variety of tables. We could also talk about the variety of chairs, because we do have quite a different selection in our classrooms. And we also have some desks we can work at that don't involve tables or chairs, the student type desks, right? We have a rug. And if we talk about all of those things in our types of furniture, we might make sure to include everything that's important. You can do the same for each of your other sections. Predict what you think you'd want to include in each of those sections. Let's focus for a second on our introduction. What kinds of things do you need to do in your introduction? One of the most important is to grab your reader's attention right from the start. How do you do that? Maybe you want to paint a picture for your reader by giving a visual description of something. Maybe you'd like to ask a question. Those are great ways to get started. So I'm going to make myself a note here that in my introduction, maybe I want to ask a question. We're thinking about all the things we'd want to include before we do our writing. This is the planning part. Not everyone might know what flexible seating is, so maybe I should provide a little bit of a definition in my introduction of what flexible seating actually is. So I'm going to define flexible seating. Writers, do you notice how in each of these I'm not writing in complete sentences? In your planning, full sentences are not necessary, so just put down a few words to help you organize your thoughts. With the rest of my introduction, I could consider giving some statistics or some fun facts that would help interest the reader in my topic. I could give some background information. Those are some great ways to think about. So let me put maybe a little more background information, thinking about why DAA chose flexible seating. I think if I do these three things, I'll have a pretty good start to my introduction. I can always go back and add more after I've written it the first time if I feel like it's missing something. All right, writers, last part of our organizing, once you've thought about each of your sections, let's talk about the conclusion. It's important to create an ending that wraps up the big ideas and leaves your readers with a better understanding of the topic. So how do we do that? The important thing to do would be to call the reader to action. Can you give them something to do with their new information? What should they do next? How could they help? Is your topic something that they could help with? If it is, can you encourage them to do something? Connect your readers to the topic. You could again try to paint a visual picture of why this topic is important and why the topic matters. So down here in the conclusion, I'm going to write myself some notes. I'm going to write that I should suggest something for the readers to do, and I want to remind them of the big ideas from my writing from the whole book. And perhaps maybe include why this topic is important. If I do those things, then I'll be sure to have an excellent conclusion to my informational writing.